Greetings, YouTube. I'm Steel Soldier, a VTuber pixel artist on Twitch, also known as Twitch Steel. I wanted to do like a very brief tutorial about doing a little bit of like pixel art on the program called Sprite. I figured this might actually help a few people out. So I'm going to quickly just change the color palette that I'm using to something else, to something a bit more simple. So I would say choose like a couple of colors you're comfortable with. I'm going to go with maybe about 5 to 7-ish colors. Let me see. Let me see if I can find something that would work well here. Yes, why not this one? This one actually seems decent. So this one has, this is the darkest color. You can see my colors on the top left. Oops, on the top left, like I said. This is the darkest color over here. We're gonna leave this as a layer called background. Background color. Lock it in, and then load a couple more layers. And we're gonna start doing what I generally do in these, which is like draw like a couple of nebula. And these nebulas can be done in a couple of different ways. For like these space pictures, a thing that I like to do sometimes, which is a bit of an easier method, is just use like a 3 pixel brush tool or something, or even 2-point, and just kind of like draw like these wavy this wavy motion for like the nebulas. Don't worry too much about if it makes sense or not. I would say kind of make it almost like it's acting a little bit like a liquid, but with no gravity involved. So it'd be kind of like floating in space a little bit. And then we can also do a couple of these like over here and there. Maybe like so. Maybe add like a couple of like different shapes to this to make it a bit more interesting. Let's do it really quickly. Something like this. And then maybe another one like this. Okay. This seems nice. It kind of looks like a little bit of an octopus, which I think will work. Maybe add another one over here. Do like a couple of waves. And then make it like thicker to like the part that's kind of connecting. A little bit like that. And then let's add maybe one last like nebula over here. Something like this. We can add like a couple of things doing sort of like this as well. Kind of like a few waves per se. I don't know if that's what they would be called. Generally what I like to do. Have it done like this. A little bit. Now, you can see this is kind of what we have going on at the moment in terms of like nebula. And now, we probably want to add another like color to this. So we're going to add our third color that we have in the list, which is this one. And this is going to add a bit of another layer to the nebula itself. So we kind of try to imagine, we're kind of like not really shading, we're kind of thinking of where this nebula kind of like starts and where it's supposed to end. Maybe it starts like sending more thicker layers of nebula as it progresses on, and then it reaches like a point where it has less and less, if that makes sense. So kind of like this. The eraser tool is also really important for this, so just painting over it, just to add a little bit of more interesting texture to it, I would say. It's not a bad way to do it. We can do it over here as well. I would say add it to every single like piece of nebula as much as we can. I'm gonna put some over here as well. Not worry too much about how it looks at the moment. What's important is to start at one point and move onto the other. Let's add a bit more to that. Maybe like this. Yeah, that's better. Another one over here. This is gonna need a little bit of... Oops, sorry. Sometimes I keep closing in the Sprite program. Well, not closing, minimizing it, and it keeps leaving the, what you call it, OBS recording thing, and then you cannot see it anymore, and that's not a good thing. So sorry, I apologize for that. I'm trying to like... some of the things that you end up doing in pixel art, some of them are like trial and error. Others you end up, since you do them over time, you start understanding more and more how to do them. So yeah, let's add this. Maybe add another thing over here. This, something like this. Now you can see nebula is starting to look so much better with like this added texture, and we only started with a very simple color. One thing that I've noticed in pixel art overall is that as soon as you have two colors, you can start making things look like they actually have a proper depth to them, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of the important thing, is to make the most out of the colors that you have. Not worry too much about how these not worry too much about the colors that you're using, although I would say it's preferable to start off with like a color palette of some sort. Like this is a color palette that was already available. I got it from low spec palettes. I think it's called Oil 6, so it's just 6 colors. But I think it works quite well, as you can see. I think it works well. We can add a couple of more interesting lines to these nebulas to add a bit more interesting texture. And I would say, in terms of nebula, we could probably add an additional color, maybe. Just one last color, just to make it a bit more interesting. Just a little color to add a bit more glow to it. Nothing too much. Don't worry too much about how you're doing it. The thing that matters the most is having it start at one point and then end on the other. So it kind of makes sense. I think nebulas are kind of a little bit... not exactly like clouds. I don't know how to explain how they are in terms of scientific terms, because I do not know those terms that well, but what's important is to try and like think where the light sources are coming from and where they're going a little bit. And then going from there. I think that's what matters the most. Just gonna do like this to add a little bit more of an interesting texture. Maybe this, maybe that. Now we get pretty interesting looking like nebula structure. We can then do something that I generally do, which I do like these, and you can do these with like the line tool. This adds like another layer of interest to the nebula, kind of how it's like dissipating in different direction. In this case, it's dissipating diagonally. So you can do kind of like this. And the most important thing is to keep trying and then seeing what works and what doesn't. As you can see, if I keep extending this to like this part of the nebula, it kind of feels like it's starting to like dissipate from the center of the nebula, or the part that it's glowing the most, to the outside, for example. And that can create some interesting effects, if that makes sense. That's kind of one of the things with colors in general. You can do like these crazy experiments. Maybe you would have, I don't know, maybe you wanted this to extend over here as well, and have also have this sort of extension where the background color flows into the actual nebula as well. And this is just me trying it, I know, and you know, it can definitely work. It can also be a stylistic choice as well. And you know what, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's keep experimenting here. I would say do it in like places where there's a bunch of clusters of pixels, so where there's a lot of pixels around, so it doesn't look too messy. Kind of like here, and then this transitions here. Then we can have a transition kind of like that, and maybe we have some of these coming over here. And then boop, one over there. We can have another one over here. Kind of like that. We can add this over here. That's not bad. Maybe we don't need an additional color there. We can go from here. Have this extendo prexo from over here. Very nice. Look at that. And maybe we don't need another one over here. Actually, let's do it. Why not? Since we're doing this again. Let's do it again. Boom, prexo. Got another one over there. And let's add one final one over here. For good measure. Keep it like 2 pixels of difference in terms of distance. Because why not? Have it kind of over here. Then maybe this kind of goes a bit over there. And then we can have a layer over here that kind of goes... maybe not. Let's not do that. Just one final thing like that. There you go. Nebula. Let me just save this just in case Sprite crashes, so... Space tutorial. I don't know if this counts like a tutorial, but at the very least you can see like the whole process of me doing it. So let's go on and do like a planet of some sort. Let's have the planet, for example, I don't know. Maybe kinda... Ooh, I didn't think this through how I would use the space, but let's move this nebula kind of over here. Did we move it? Yes, we did. We moved it a little bit. Put like a planet over here. And we can do it in many different ways. I use the circle tool in order to make the basic globe. And then I start using the circle tool in order to plan out where the light is going to be, where it's like hitting. So maybe there's like a huge star like coming from over there, or a huge light source, and it hits it kind of over here. And then another one. And now we can start think of, oh, maybe it has like a couple of islands and whatever. And then you just start putting some blobs. I don't worry too much about the overall shape, and then I use the eraser tool until I got something that works. And guess what? This works perfectly fine. Sometimes I just do things like this, where I don't worry like too much about the overall like shape of the actual thing, because for the most part, anything that I don't know, if you look at Earth and you look at the islands and whatever, They could have been any other shape, like when the islands ended up splitting because they were together at some point. They were like this huge island, which was like Pangaea or whatever. If I'm actually recalling, maybe I'm just talking out of my ass at the moment, which could be a possibility. Who knows? But yeah, you just gotta experiment. You gotta put blobs of like textures and then see what works and what doesn't. Like this works, for example. And then we do this, and this adds what I'm doing by adding this like darker color over here. It's kind of like I'm giving an indication of depth to the actual island. It's like saying, it's like the island has a little bit of height, and I think it helps. It helps a little, and maybe we can add, for example, like just a couple of like very small islands over here, and maybe that's our planet. It's our little planet. I'm just gonna add a couple of things here. This is kinda to just add a little bit of like it's more like a stylistic choice, what I'm doing. Just kind of adding like a little bit of an outline to it, and it can work in some pieces, some it doesn't. But what's important is to try and experiment and see what works and what doesn't. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some clouds, and we have this. I don't know if this is a plain white color. No, it isn't. It is not a plain white color. But we're gonna be using this whitish looking color. And we're gonna think where the clouds are at. So they're gonna be like going in like a bit of a circular motion. And I'm increasing the size of the brush for the clouds and then decreasing it. So I'm saying the cloud starts a specific size from over here all the way to over here, then decreases all the way to there. And now we can do the same thing like over here, and I'm using these the lighting source as a bit of a guide, although I could have technically come up with a different guide altogether and made one specific guide for this without resorting to this one I did, but that's okay. You can do many things. You could have maybe just made like some different like cloud shapes drawn like, I don't know, like something kind of like this, have it go wrap around the planet, add like a couple of like textures to it, I don't know, something, and then you would have had a cloud. Okay, this is not perfect, but you get what I mean. It doesn't need to be using the the pixel brush specifically in order to make the clouds. You can do whatever you want, and I would definitely encourage to experiment as much as possible. And now we have this thing for the clouds, and now what we're gonna do is add a couple more, maybe like a few smaller ones over here and there, just because now we're going to select the whole entire thing that has the color on this layer. We're kind of going to darken it up in certain places. We want to kind of give it more of a texture of a cloud. And hopefully this does not clash with other pieces we have, specifically these islands over here. So I'm gonna do my best so it doesn't. We're gonna be doing this for now. And then I'm gonna use the white spot over here. And you can see this is gonna start looking more rounded. This part is gonna be darker, while the other part is kind of receiving all the light. That's why this gives it more of like a bubbly look. If it makes sense, hopefully it does. It doesn't need to be perfect. None of this I'm doing it to be perfect. I'm just doing it as I go. Not maybe doing a couple of changes when needed. And I did a mistake already. because this is supposed to be like this. Yeah. Sometimes doing things in an alley ends up with you making mistakes, so you do it like this. Light source, kind of have to think where it's sitting. Maybe we add like a little thing over here. And now we got these clouds, and we can start adding like, I don't know, maybe underneath the clouds it's darker because the clouds are hitting. This can add another layer to our little picture over here, as you can see. Because now these clouds are darkening the place, which makes it interesting. And then you kind of have to think about whatever else they're darkening. Like they're supposed to darken this island over here as well. Maybe it has to be this color now, for example. Now we have that over here, that over here, and then the darker color for this part. Not everything needs to be, you have to like think of where it would be darkening. So think about like shadows and whatnot. Now you got this pretty looking planet over here. Let's maybe shade it a few places, maybe add like a couple of like mountains and whatnot to make the place look more interesting. Like add a bit more like layers to the actual islands. Maybe this one could be a little bit brighter over here, for example. Maybe this one too. And this makes it look like, maybe it has like mountains or something. I don't know. Maybe this is like a little peak over here. Or whatever. Now you got a nice little, and let's add like an island over here because the clouds over here are kind of blocking those islands a little bit. And then we just add like this like island over here. Boom. Now you got a little planet over here. Very like pretty looking. Let's make one extra thing over here. It's just gonna be like a moon. I'm gonna show you how to do the moon. Maybe in a different layer though. Let me do this in a different layer. I'm gonna do the moon over here. The moon is gonna be over here, and we're gonna start by doing this. And then voila. We're gonna start making like these little like crevices the moon have because of the meteors like going and crashing against it and whatnot. And I'm mostly using the pencil tool, increasing the size and decreasing it as I need it. I'm gonna add another one over here, another brightish color here. And then I'm gonna do this. This is kind of the part that's getting the less amount of light, kind of like this part protruding from the actual hole is like extending and not allowing this hole to receive the light, and this is what gives you the depth to the actual structure, if that makes sense. It's kind of the idea that I'm kind of having, or at least the best way to explain it. And then I do add like a couple of different textures here in order to make it look like it transitions better between these different colors. And here's a thing that I would not recommend for a person to do if they're not a bit more knowledgeable. I'm gonna give it a bit of anti-aliasing. So one here, one there, one there, another there, another there, another there, another there. That will add a bit more interesting colors. And now let's see, let's see if I can do this without screwing this up. I want to see if I can add a final crevice over here. There we go, final crevice over there, looking good. Can't complain. Now we got a little moon over there. Very nice. And now we're gonna do probably the easiest part, in my opinion, which is just stars. Actually, before we do that, let's do like a couple of asteroids now. Not asteroids, like little debris. Debris, I just do this. I think of the top part of it, and then I add the bottom part. And there you go, you got debris. Another one. And another one. Actually, let's do that like so. And another one, this one's smaller. And then let's add like a kind of like a bigger one over there. And to finalize this one, then we add a color over here. This has a name that I can't remember. We're kind of like thinking of maybe like the light is hitting this specific point, or this part is like protruding. That's where the kind of light goes. And now we have that debris over there. And now let's do the stars. Now the stars, there's some simple ones. The easiest one I know is just a dot, but you can also do this. So 3 pixel line, and then you add colors, a pixel on each one of the sides, one on the top. You can do this again, like so. Then you add a bunch of these, for example. And you can see this is already making this part a lot more pretty. And then there's like alternations of these that you can do. Like for example, you could have expanded this even further, and then like this. For example, you can do a lot of like different things. You just gotta you gotta experiment and do them, and then you gotta like figure out if it makes sense in your current picture to have that type of star in one specific place, or if it starts looking like too much clutter. And then there's like a different one where you think of like where it's like glowing. Like for example, here it's glowing, and then it has a center, and then it expands outwards. For example, kind of like this. This is like a bit of a more complicated one, but not really the most complicated in my opinion. Although it's definitely one of the brighter ones. You can do it like this. And then you could have, I don't know, maybe it produces a bit of like a lens flare, kind of like so. Actually, that might have to be bigger to make the lens flare work specifically at that angle. Kind of like that, yeah. See, now we got a little lens flare going on. We add this. I like using anti-aliasing sometimes because it makes certain edges look smoother. That's kind of the purpose of anti-aliasing. I would recommend using it only when you know how to use it, but it takes a while, but you'll get there. Then we add like a couple more stars over here, for example. Add a couple more purplish looking things. We can add one over here. Actually, let's extend this further. That's not bad. There are a couple of problems with this star, but you kind of get the idea. You can do a lot of different things. You don't need to stick to a very particular pattern. You can experiment and just go wild. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. You can use different colors. Don't worry too much about what you're doing. You just gotta go. You just gotta go. like this. Something like that, and then we can add a couple of like stars over there. Maybe like another one of these. Maybe if you wanted, you could just copy this, add a few all over the place. For example, that can make it easier on you. Then we can add a couple of stars over here. Maybe these are like smaller ones. Maybe a couple of smaller ones over here. Maybe a few over here. Maybe we can add, I don't know, how about a little galaxy? We can do it too. You start with the square, then you add these Lego lines, and it's going to start looking like a very specific symbol sometimes, but don't worry about it. It will disappear. It will be gone. And it's finally gone. And now you got a little nebula. And a couple of stars around it, so people are drawn to that very particular thing. Maybe use... how about this color? We haven't used it yet. Another one over here. Then we can also add a couple more over here, because why not? Ooh, that's a little tough to see here, but I kind of get the idea. Maybe just a couple of white stars, not even worrying about having like an additional color of them can look good. Don't worry too much. Sometimes one color is enough. You don't need to use all the colors you have. Using just one can be enough to get the point across. You can do something like this. Maybe another thing like this, another one like this. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, can do that too. Not a problem. And then maybe once this extends further, this starts going into like this less darkish color, kind of like this. I mean darkish color. You can do like this, maybe. I don't know. And that works. That just works. It just works. Just do that. Boom, another different like star over there. Maybe you want to add a couple of these around here. Why not? You want like a little bit of white over here. Maybe you want to do this. Maybe you want to do this. Maybe you just want to add like a little eclipse over here. This is like a little like eclipse thing, and it kind of goes like this. Why not? You can do it. Maybe this is not in the best place possible, I'm gonna be honest. I just added that over there, and that might actually not be in the best place, no. But it can be over here. Definitely be over here. Maybe this goes forward all the way over there. You add kind of like these for like a little bit of transition. Kind of like so. Voila. This kind of can go backwards a little bit. Kind of like so. Goes all the way over there. This part starts getting darker around here, for example. And then you do this. And this. Maybe it kind of stops over there, for example. You add a couple of like... actually add a couple of more different colors to make it more interesting. Maybe do like a couple of like... maybe do that thing we did earlier with this color in particular. Kind of like this. Maybe you can even do like a little like constellation over here. Like so. This is a thing that I do sometimes. This can also look cool. I remember just looking at like some pieces, and they sometimes do this, where they'll do like outlines and do the very different things. And then If you think it's finished, you know, you add your tag. In this case, I'm gonna add my Steel Soldier signature thing that I put on everything that I do. And boom, you got your space picture done. Hopefully this thing helps you a little bit. It's definitely a piece. 45 minute-ish piece, I suppose. So, hope you enjoyed this video. I know that it doesn't have any music, but I hope this helps you out. Maybe we can follow through it and learn a couple of things on things you can do, like space-wise, in order to give it attempt and do things that have more of a space feel, if that makes sense. Just keep on trying and doing different things and see what works and what doesn't. That's the best thing that a person can do in order to learn. Like adding this. Actually, maybe this would be a little bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Boom. Okay. Thank you for watching again, and have a good one. Hopefully this helps you.